So, Eric, cow-calf is number one in our state, but there's other alternatives of cattle production systems.
Absolutely. So, a stocker or a backgrounding type operation is certainly a possibility. I mean, we think about, of the 1.8 million beef cows in the state, we raise about 1.65 million calves per year. Of that, nearly 1 million of them leave the state immediately at weaning. And so somebody else is adding value to them, backgrounders, stockers, feedlot, et cetera. Okay. So we think about the 2X Ag 2030 goal that Extension is set. Mm-hmm. We can add a lot of value to the beef production chain just by keeping those calves in Missouri for a little while longer and growing them. And the growing animal does not depreciate in value during times of drought because they got a home to go to. They can go to a feedlot, right? To be fed out. I mean, the feedlots, they will take cattle of various sizes and weights and classes, right? So it just depends on the what it's costing them to feed those animals. So in era now where we're at sub $5 corn, they're probably going to be more willing to take various sizes and weights of animals, meaning that we could, in the future, have a farm where we talked about in the last segment, 25% native warm season grass and 75% cool season grasses. Mm-hmm. I want to introduce the idea of 75% cow-calf and 25% flexible grazing unit, where meaning that if we used to run 3 acres a cow, maybe now we run 4 acres a cow. But on that extra acre, rather than devoting it to cows, we do stockers, we background calves. Maybe our fall calving cows, we wean those calves late and let them get bigger, because we know that a fall calving cow often gets fleshy over the late spring and the summer months before going into calving that next fall. I mean, even something like sheep or goat, could be an alternative enterprise. It's identifying animals that can be moved off of the farm during periods of drought that you're not going to lose money on the day that you move them off of the farm. I mean, even custom grazing cows for a neighbor, right? So if you want to make a business arrangement where they pay you X number of dollars per cow per day to run their cattle on your farm, but the understanding is in place and it's written into the contract or the agreement that, hey, if it's dry, they got to go home.
Right.
You're not losing any money other than your custom grazing rate. So, when I got a farm rented in Randolph County, I could have went and bought, it was 176 grazable acres. So it was more than that, but there's a lot of woods on it. It was like 176 grazable acres. Well, I could have went and put 60 cows out there, right? 3 acres a cow. Uh-huh. I didn't. I went out and I made a deal to custom graze 250 600-pound heifers on that farm for 90 days from about the 1st of April to the 1st of July. And essentially then what I did was I used that spring flush of fescue growth when it started to, taper off and go into the summer slump. The heifers left. The farm was empty, July, August, September. I came back in October with about a third as many, and then I grazed them November, December, January.
So you used the 2/3, 1/3 as tall fescue and took full advantage of that.
Exactly.
That way.
But here's the thing. So I'm beginning farmer. I was leasing that land. I basically poured my entire savings into the paying the rent the first year on it. I didn't have a whole lot of money for equipment. So I wasn't going to go out and buy a flatbed and a spike to feed hay. I didn't have haying equipment. I bought 20 panels. I bought a junky four-wheeler, and I bought a portable loading chute so that I could unload or load semi-trucks so that I could get those animals in and out of there. And that was all the equipment that I bought to accomplish this sort of custom grazing objective. If I was dry, I didn't graze. If it was wet, I would have kept them longer, right? So that flexible grazing unit, let's just kind of go through the big ones right quick.
Sure.
So fall calving cow. Why do we wean calves in May or in June?
Lots of growth.
There's lots of feed out there still. And those cows are often fleshy at that point, right? And so, I mean, Dr. Kallenbach did a study at Forage Systems Research Center a number of years ago where they weaned cows and grazed the calves in a leader-follower system where the calves grazed the pasture and the rotational grazing system first, and then the cows came behind. Or they left the pairs together. They left the cows and calves together and just rotated them. There was no difference in performance, and cow body condition score wasn't different. So, I mean, you know, I ask the question, we talk about weaning calves at 205 days of age, 220, 240. Why not leave them out there another 60 days, especially if we know that those cows are going to be fleshy anyway, right?
Well, she's pregnant.
She's pregnant, so she's essentially grazing, nursing the previous year's calf and growing the next year's calf. Now, that to me is a function of body condition, right? So as long as she stays fleshy, let's do it. If it gets dry, wean those calves and sell them. There's no discount for weaned calves during drought, right?
Right, because they have a place to go.
Yeah, they have a place to go. Exactly. Now, we get into some of these really, really light calves if we have to wean at 100 days of age. Even the price slide is often such that they're valuable in and of themselves. Where you lose money on it is you don't get to sell that extra 100 to 200 pounds of weight. So that's an example of 25-75. Maybe I run a few less cows, but I leave the calves on longer, right? Because the thing about running backgrounders or stockers on the farm in conjunction with your cow herd is, can you keep them separate effectively? You know, there's risk of biosecurity, right? So animals coming and going off of the farm, bringing disease on. I'm not a veterinarian. That's a common concern that I hear, an objection that I hear from producers when we're talking about that. I get that. I still think that having that arrangement is great, though, because, right, so if you were planning to bring stockers in the spring of 24, we know that it's been dry. We know that we've got significant soil or significant precipitation deficits. Maybe I don't bring stockers in the spring of 24 so that in case I don't have grass, I've got fewer animals to spread it across. I also, if I only stock in the spring and I don't bring another set in the fall, that's more acres of stockpile. I could then, in a sense, potentially reduce the number of days that I feed hay in the winter because I was stockpiling fescue on more acres per cow, right?
All summer. Oh,
exactly. Yes. If I had an extra acre of stockpile per cow for the winter months, how far is that going to carry me? Right. That might be another 3 weeks of grazing right there. So
the only bad thing about bringing in from outside, other than diseases, is they're a little more temperamental. They're young. Yeah. They're younger.
Yeah. So you've got stockmanship, right? So if you are the guy who hand feeds his cows 3 times a week and can pet them and has them all named, and, you know, quite honestly are not comfortable around animals with a bigger flight zone, then, you know, maybe there's a different business model, right? Maybe it's keeping all of your heifers and developing replacements. If you've got good genetics, right? Those are animals that you've handled your whole life. They're probably town dog gentle already. You know, they are another candidate, right? So a heifer development program. I mean, think about the success that folks have had selling into Show Me Select, right?
Right.
We have a market for bred heifers in the state of Missouri. We also have an opportunity to improve your farm too. If you keep more heifers than you normally would to meet your replacement needs, perhaps then you AI all the heifers and you only keep AI breds, and now your calving season goes from 45 days in heifers to 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks.
And the ones that won't breed, you have a market for them.
Exactly. And the ones that don't breed, they can be sold as feeders.
Yes.
The ones that breed late could be marketed as bred heifers. And you've created diversity because you get into a situation where at weaning time, when you historically made your, I'm going to keep her as a replacement, I'm going to sell her at the sale barn, if you get into the habit of keeping them all, but then you run into, let's say, fall of 2023 in your spring calving herd, if I was in the driver's seat there, I'd pick my replacements at weaning, send the rest of the feeder heifers to town, and I've effectively destocked.
Right.
But destocked without taking a hit on the value of those animals.
You sold them at their high value.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that's the concept, a flexible grazing unit. I think, a quarter of your farm, a third of your farm, I would argue for half of your farm personally, just for maximum flexibility. And we didn't even talk about this, but, small ruminants, multi-species grazing,
Yes.
sheep and goat markets are hot right now. Those animals kind of come and go, right? So I'm not saying bring in a bunch of breeding ewes, but if you could do, kind of stocker lambs or feeder goats or something along those lines, which are about out of the area of my expertise. But the thing that's nice about the small ruminants is that they'll eat closer to manure piles than a cow will. And so in some cases, you can actually effectively stock one small ruminant per cow on your farm without having to change the stocking rate of your cow.
Because they'll clean up what
the cows won't eat. Now, the challenge with that, though, is going to be fencing, right? That's the number one challenge is your farm set up to handle, to keep small ruminants in.
But they also have choice differences.
Exactly, yeah. So, goats are browsers. They eat more forbs. They eat more woody species, shrubs, legumes. Cows are grass, and sheep are kind of intermediate. So
really, what you're talking about, if you've got 20 or 2,000, these different systems can work, these diversified systems, whether it's heifer development or keeping your calves longer,
yep.
or even with different types of animals out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just it's flexibility.
Yes.
Right. So, and I said it before and I'll say it again, putting all your eggs in one basket from a forage perspective is a brittle business model. Putting all of your eggs in one livestock production model is a brittle business model. And we got to talk about brittle business models more, because as climate and rainfall patterns, are they changing? Are they not changing? That's way above my pay grade to make comments or statements on that. But I mean, the data over the last 80 years would show that we've got 2 droughts a decade in this state, despite being a 40-inch plus precipitation state.
And take advantage of where you live. If you live in a corn-producing area, maybe you can lease some acres or in the winter to graze those corn stalks.
And that's exactly right, Tim. You are exactly right. So, that also could look like increasing, finding alternative feed resources.
Yes.
Because corn stalks are an inexpensive. I mean, a farmer is probably going to have less than $20 an acre in shredding those stalks. Now, they might be able to generate some revenue during times like this by baling those corn stalks. But there are other years when feed resources are abundant that you can offer them a service, not having to go out into the field.
Yes.
They lease that ground to you at what seems like a discount to you, but it's actually a cost savings for them. So, go out and create win-wins with your neighbors, basically.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you, Eric. This has been enlightening about how you can manage your livestock operation to beat the drought, or at least cope with the drought.
Exactly.
That we have for 4 out of 10 years. It's
like my grandpa always said, the best farmers don't make the most money in the good years. They lose the least money in the bad years.
That's great wisdom, because there are those bad years that you do lose.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you do this in the good years, but you do this in the bad years, the average, you're losing money.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Eric.
Yep.
We really appreciate it. Well, this is it for Tim's Take, and we look forward to talking to you again.